Well, this week's classic review takes us back to the good old days of single-branded pay-per-views and what many call the peak of what is known as the Reign of Terror. It's WWE Armageddon 2003 from the TD Waterhouse Center, now the Amway Arena in Orlando, Florida from December 14th, 2003. This show was nominated by Ian McConville, Michael Lee, Mr. Blah, Derek Hebler, Christian Bullard, Ambrose Chongo, and Thomas Fireheart over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. It's a Raw exclusive pay-per-view, and folks, the foundation of the Red brand has been rocked to its core after what happened at Survivor Series. Fans and performers on that show alike are collectively mourning the loss of Stone Cold Steve Austin as an on-air authority figure competing with Eric Bischoff. But after the big Team Austin, Team Bischoff Survivor Series match, Austin is out. He finally gets the send-off that he didn't really get in Seattle earlier in the year, and now he's gone from TV. What is a Red brand to do? At the same time, though, the newly formed Evolution is using its political pull with GM Eric Bischoff in order to consolidate its own power. 12,672 people in the building tonight, 200,000 buys, down about 100,000 from the previous year. Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler are on commentary. The opening package here with a lot of Christian imagery, not just with lots of biblical quotes, but a lot of flickering images of scary crucifixes. And I know the concept of Armageddon is a Christian thing, but just the juxtaposition of like all the Christian imagery and they're supposed to conflate it with being very scary and stuff, I don't know. It feels they're laying it on kind of thick. Also, I love these weird wrecking ball graphics at the start, and this is quite an impressive set here. The flaming A's are pretty badass, actually. There's the giant iron cross to go along with the very pro Triple H imagery, if that gives you any hint of how this night's gonna go. Your opening matchup sees Booker T going against Mark Henry, who's accompanied by Teddy Long. We're seeing him for 2 shows in a row now. Something I failed to mention in my Survivor Series 03 review, this is a very narrow window in history in which Teddy Long is between his time as a referee for the company and then the perennial SmackDown GM, tag team match playa, one-on-one with The Undertaker and all that stuff. Also, at this period of time, he hates Whitey. For the entire time as a manager here, he is dead set on challenging the white man, whether it be with D'Lo Brown, Rodney Mack, or now in this case, Mark Henry. It's a feud that came from Survivor Series. Henry eliminated Booker in the Team Bischoff versus Team Austin match. They then fought and or attacked each other every week. It's been pretty one-sided so far, all toward Henry. Fighting on the outside early on, Henry throws Booker into some stairs, the first of like 7 or 8 times at least that spot happens there, but he fights back. There's a big dive over the top rope, a missile dropkick to boot. Long on the apron provides a distraction, allowing Henry to take over. Booker T worked over and at one point squished in the ropes. A big bear hug by Mark. It's a move they put over big last week on Raw, but Booker is able to fight out of it. Booker bumping his ass off for Mark in this match, gets out of the way of a big leg drop. Almost sounds like the ring breaks, or at the very least a board comes loose. Booker keeps hitting Henry, Mark not going down. Finally, a scissors kick takes him down to a great reaction. Henry's back on top, hits a scary looking powerbomb. Booker recovers fairly quickly though, hits another scissors kick and wins the match, but the finish kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, like it was rushed or otherwise improvised. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. It was good, but not great, though it was rewarding to see Booker T kind of come out at the end of this feud, kind of like with the blow-off match, winning here after getting beat down so often by Henry, showing he's got something to prove still. But the finish did feel kind of rushed, like it was just kind of like, oh, powerbomb, and then Booker just immediately recovers for this thing. That felt a little wonky to me. Backstage, Eric Bischoff's like, damn it, this is not how I wanted my heelish plans to begin. Chris Jericho and Christian are there with him, and they're getting ready for the battle of the sexes, and Christian's like, I can't wait to beat these ladies up, yeah! While Jericho appears to have some reservations about it, but then Mick Foley's music plays, oh, hell to the no, says Bischoff. Sure enough, out comes the new co-GM of Raw, Mick Foley, and I completely forgot this angle was a thing, and I was watching regularly at this point, like weekly, obsessively, totally forget this angle happened. So what happened was, after Bischoff ran Austin out of the WWE, he became mad with power and started really throwing his weight around as an authority figure. Suddenly in comes Mick Foley, who said he was hired by Linda McMahon to be an outside advisor for the company and to kind of oversee what Bischoff is doing, basically acting like a co-GM, until that same night he goes, oh, by the way, I'm naming myself co-GM. So like, oh, you just added an extra step. step. Good for you. Foley also started a petition to bring back Stone Cold to Raw in some capacity. They did a big campaign for it for weeks. Signed the online petition, mailed shit to an actual P.O. box and everything, and that's why Foley's come out here to address it's reached 1 million signatures. Yes, he even did the Dr. Evil finger bit. He wants to celebrate, and what better way to do that than with Stacy Keibler in a cheerleader outfit. She shows off her underwear a couple of times, Foley takes a bump, she jumps into his arms. It feels like a very awkward bit for your parents to walk in on, is all I'm going to say. A young Randy Orton and Ric Flair interrupt the proceedings. Orton, the sole survivor from that Survivor Series match that saw Austin get kicked out, he tells Foley Austin is gone for good. I forget why, but last week Foley announced he'd be the special guest referee for this match as well. Man, he's got a lot of irons in the fire here. He takes off his dress shirt to reveal his referee shirt, and he's ready to roll with our next match. RVD defends the Intercontinental Championship against the young legend killer Randy Orton. Why is Ric Flair bleeding? Some fast-paced offense to start us off. RVD keeps the pace brisk. He launches Orton off the apron, then dives onto him on the outside, and for the first time tonight, I've noticed the eyes on the ring skirt. Whose eyes are those supposed to be, and why are they there? Orton shoves RVD off the top rope, and he plummets the barricade. Orton choking Van Dam on one of the ropes. He has the most amazing facial expressions while he's selling too. Foley bows up to Ric Flair on the outside for a moment, and then the match resumes. Orton putting the boots to RVD. Van Dam comes back, hits a split-legged moonsault, but Orton gets back on top. Chinlock goes for a good long while here. There's a reason he was always called Rest Hold Randy. RVD gets a much bigger comeback, complete with the leg drop on the barricade. Orton with that draping DDT though. Flair's got some brass knuckles and hops up to the apron, but Foley decks him off of it. Orton with the RKO out of nowhere to win, and he becomes the new Intercontinental Champion. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. This is a classic meshing of styles I think works really well, and even at a very young age, you can tell Orton's got that something special, which is why he's in this position. So it's his first and only Intercontinental title reign beginning here. It's a lengthy one. It's a pretty solid reign as well. Also, it's the beginning of his feud with Mick Foley, which goes into WrestleMania 20 and Backlash and all that good stuff. And I talked a little bit about that at length in my WrestleMania 20 review if you want to check that out. Up next, Battle of the Sexes as Chris Jericho and Christian take on Trish Stratus and Lita. Here's how this whole thing began. Chris Jericho has been developing this budding, somewhat romantic relationship out of a friendship with Trish Stratus. At the same time, Lita is now back on Raw after her neck injury. Matt Hardy returns to Raw only to dump Lita and get her fired. And then Christian, using a political favor he gained from being part of Team Bischoff at Survivor Series, uses the favor to get Lita rehired. So there's kind of a friendship budding there. And then as things reach their apex, we realize the two relationships have both been a sham. The boys reveal they have a bet as to who's going to sleep with who first over $1 Canadian. The ladies find out about this and are understandably upset. Bischoff makes this match, and Jericho, though, seems to be hesitant about it. Might still be having some genuine feelings for Trish, you may think. The match begins, and Jericho reiterates he does not want to hurt Trish, tries to gently touch her face again, and she rejects it. Jericho then spanks her and tells her to calm down. Christian giving Trish a big old shove, then Lita gets tagged in. She gets a good run on Christian here. Jericho with a cheap shot, then the lads take over. Christian rips off Lita's shirt at one point and taunts her with it, gets taken to Dick Kick City. Now Trish is tagged in. Christian's a total prick in this match. The fans pop huge every time he's hit by something during this match. A big Lita can run out a boot. Jericho tries to help Trish back up, all sweet-like. Even after all that, when Christian rolls Trish up and wins, Jericho looking mooey conflicted. I give this one 2 stars out of 5. The match itself is not all that impressive. Honestly, the story of what they tell, more than the physicality, carries this match here. Not to say it's like bad wrestling, it's just like it's the most you can really do in the situation given how women are portrayed at this time compared to the men. And I think Jericho's wishy-washy character, he's very inconsistent as to attacking the ladies here, but I think it does fit in with the character. He is getting more conflicted about it because this does develop into more of an angle that I forgot that this angle with Christian and Chris Jericho and Trish begins this far back and carries not only into WrestleMania 20 with the big turn, but then also, spoiler alert, but also bleeding into like at least one pay-per-view after that. They do a long time with this storyline here. It's pretty crazy. Up next, it's time to see Shawn Michaels taking on Batista of Evolution at Survivor Series. HBK put on one of the greatest performances in the pay-per-view's history, mounting an insane comeback attempt only to be thwarted by the big man, the muscle of Evolution. They've been at each other's throats ever ever since. HBK starts things off with some quick shots to rile up the big man, even decks Flair on the outside for good measure, feels pretty happy about it. Batista soon overpowers Michaels and attacks the back. JR on commentary saying his Achilles heel is his lower back, if that makes any sense. Michaels comes back with a moonsault, but that's short-lived. Batista grinds HBK down, goes for a double chokeslam, but Michaels counters the DDT and a big diving elbow. Goes for sweet chin music, but he's caught with a pair of spine busters. HBK slips out of another slam, hits the super kick to win, spoiling Evolution's goal of sweeping the show. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. It's another great example of just how good Shawn Michaels is. Not to say Batista was bad here. He has a lot to learn, you could tell at this point in his career, but Shawn works so well with him and makes him look like $1,000,000, and Batista does look great. Shawn looks great, and through the beating and everything, I think it's just a really good example of what Shawn's capable of doing at this point in his career, able to carry this future star and make him look like a star. After the match, Batista wakes up and realizes he's lost and is very upset about it. He's still in the ring to the point where we just go to our next scheduled match. It's something that was built on heat that night. Maven, holy crap, haven't seen him in forever. He's supposed to take on Matt Hardy, but Bat's still in the ring. The two just fight on the outside before the bell rings. Maven thrown to the wolves, and Batista just takes out his frustration on the former Tough Enough winner. Multiple Batista bombs in the ring. He goes on his merry way. Matt Hardy gets in the ring, counts himself to 3 to win this non-match. Boy, that Matt Hardy sure is a bastard. Backstage, Batista still beside himself over his loss. Flair getting into his face and pumps him back up, tells him he's got something special inside him. He's got a surprise for Batista, says they're going to walk out tonight with some championship gold. Then, apropos of nothing, it's time for a tag team turmoil match to determine the World Tag Team Champions. Your first two teams are La Resistance and Hurricane and Rosie, the superhero in training. Hurricane goes for a dive to the outside but gets caught up in the ropes. Ouch. He recovers well enough and we eventually get the hot tag to Rosie. Rosie just dumping Rene Dupree to the outside, takes down Rob Conway, and the Hurricane with a big splash off the big man's shoulders. La Rez is out. Then up next are Mark Jindrak and Garrison Cade, who jump them from behind and roll them up for an instant elimination. Out next are Val Venus and Lance Storm. Storm's whole gimmick at this point is he's a recovering, boring wrestler. He was kind of doomed by Steve Austin several months before, saying he's boring, and so he does kind of like the Cabbage Patch gimmick. And then along the way, we find out that in kayfabe, Lance Storm's got a huge dong, so he hangs out with Val Venus and some ladies. That's his current lot in life at this point. Jindrak has worked over for a bit, then Cade comes in late for the finish where Val gets tripped up on a suplex and gets pinned. Doesn't look very good. Whoops. In come the Dudley Boys, the current tag team champions, defending their gold here in this match. These two teams have been beefing as of late on TV. Some good back and forth here. Eventually, Jindrak walks right into the 3D and the Dudleys eliminate Cade and Jindrak. Scott Steiner and Test emerge next. The baddies attack Bubba's arm pretty extensively until he finally comes back and tags in Devon, who goes for a big run. Steiner telling Test to go for the boot, but Test misses the mark and it's his own partner instead. Somehow not the finish. Test using a chair behind the referee's back, also not the finish. A Bubba bomb to Test, allowing the Dudleys to pin and win, and now they retain the tag titles, or do they? Eric Bischoff emerges and announces there's one more team in the gauntlet. It's Batista and Ric Flair. They beat down the Dudleys, Batista bomb to Devon, Evolution win the tag team championships. From beginning to end, I give this match 2 stars out of 5. It feels fairly inconsistent. Like, it starts off kind of on a high note with Hurricane and Rosie and La Resistance. Then when Jindrak and Cade come in, things get kind of derailed in terms of momentum. And then when the Dudleys get back in, things kind of improve. And then by the end, the classic heel move of like the heel swooping in at the end to do something nefarious and claim the gold, that was pretty good. So yeah, this match on the whole is kind of a mixed bag, but it definitely accomplished its goal of just getting Evolution hated even more. We get a recap of the press conference with WWE and the USO announcing the beginning of their deal to perform overseas for the troops, what we now know as Tribute to the Troops. It's the beginning of what has since become a very strong relationship between the two groups. On we go to our women's championship match as Molly Holly defends against Ivory. But quick question, how did this match actually come about? Because unless this was built on Sunday Night Heat and I didn't watch it, there's no build to this at all on television. Molly Holly has been on TV on Raw a little bit since Survivor Series, but Ivory has not shown up on Raw once. And by the way, this is Ivory's first and only pay-per-view appearance all year. Ivory starts out strong, slingshotting Molly out of the ring and a senton off the apron that gets, sadly, no reaction from the fans. Now, all show, I have a really hard time hearing the commentary. I don't know if it has to do with the mixing on the show itself or how it played on my TV as I was watching it, and this is the way the speakers are set up, but I really had a hard time making out most of the commentary in this thing. It kind of came and went in certain bursts of words, and all this match, all I heard were things like sexually frustrated, and sexual preference, and IBS, and prune juice. Like, what the fuck are these guys on about in commentary? Holly works over Ivory, but the challenger remains resilient. Molly exposes the top turnbuckle, but that backfires. Ivory can't put her away, but Molly rolls out of that pinfall attempt into one of her own, and she wins. I give it 1 star out of 5. Nothing really special about this match, other than the fact that I guess it was on the card, which I guess is kind of a miracle in and of itself at the time. But yeah, it was just a weird match, kind of came out of nowhere. There was no build to this as far as I could tell, and it happened. Main event time for the World Heavyweight Championship. It's a triple threat as Goldberg defends against Triple H and Kane. Goldberg finally able to conquer Triple H and Unforgiven to win the world title. He retained at Survivor Series after all of Evolution got involved. Triple H is not done chasing after Goldberg though. He uses his influence with Eric Bischoff to get another shot, but then Kane shows up fresh off his ambulance match with Shane McMahon, and he wants a piece of Goldberg. Bischoff forced to put all 3 of them together in a title match for tonight. I love the use of the song "The End Is Here" in the hype package here, but also the editing that goes along with the song is choice for me. My favorite part of this is the lyric, 1 minute here and the next you are gone. And their visual representations, a close-up of Triple H with the belt, then boop, it's gone. Like, oh, what happened? 1 minute it was here, the next it was gone. Where'd it go? And you would think if they were going to go to all the trouble of like building the marketing for this show around like Triple H aesthetic, and you even have the Iron Cross at the set, they would do some special kind of lighting for the cross during Triple H's entrance, but instead, nothing. What the hell? Lots of jaw-jacking by H to start things off, then Kane gets some time to chat. Triple H with a cheap shot and the 2 heels beat down Goldberg early on, but the champion fights back. Goldberg and Kane work one-on-one for a bit. Goldberg looking strong with a big Beal to Kane and a difficult-looking press slam to Triple H. Kane countering a spear attempt, and it's back to 2-on-1. The partnership goes south real quick though, and Kane ejects Hunter from the ring for the time being. The H-Man comes back in and dinks Kane with a steel chair. Goldberg comes in. He wants to Pillmanize Hunter's leg as revenge for what Evolution did to him, but Kane stops that from happening. The Spanish announce table comes into play. Goldberg about to suplex Kane onto it, but H stops him. Kane slams Goldberg onto the table and it does not budge. Triple H then breaks it with an elbow. Funny moment where Kane stares down Hunter for having the chair. These two fight for a while. Kane keeps sitting up, begins to no-sell punches, goes on a big run. Fighting on the ramp, Kane chokeslams the game on the steel. Goes back into the ring and Kane walks into a spear by Goldberg. The champ fighting off both guys at once for a while. Another spear onto Kane, one for Hunter. Then Evolution comes running in. Goldberg with kind of a mini spear to Triple H. Kane breaks it up. A double choke off between Kane and Goldberg, which the fans totally shit on. Kane hits the choke slam. Batista pulls him out of the ring. Triple H with an opportunistic cover and the win. H wins the world title once again, and the show closes with that classic shot of all 4 members of Evolution with their respective titles as we go off the air. I give it 3 stars out of 5. You know, it's a common problem that I see with most Goldberg matches during this era, where WWE tries to make Goldberg something he really isn't, and they try and take away his strengths and the things that made him so over to begin with in WCW. These longer, stretched out matches, and of course Triple H is the master of matches like those, and so it just doesn't play to his strengths. A for effort in this match, and kudos to Kane and Triple H for kind of keeping it all together. Goldberg wasn't terrible in this matchup, but I think that, again, if you keep the match shorter, it plays more to his strengths. So in the end, the main event was pretty so-so, and darkest timeline, Evolution stands tall in the end. My grade for Armageddon 2003 is a C+. For as many nominations I got for this show, I was expecting something a bit more like spectacular in the end, and it really wasn't. Like, as far as like telling a singular story across one pay-per-view, the story of Evolution's, consolidation of power and the championships, I thought was told very well, and they did that great. But as far as like other matches go, not a whole lot of great matches to speak of or memorable matches to speak of on this show. It's literally Evolution's the one thing you remember about this, and them holding the belts at the end. Maybe people were expecting me to have more visceral reaction to this show because of my thoughts on the Reign of Terror. And like, as a fan, I didn't care for this run because I think that Hunter being in the spot that he was in for so long ultimately hurt the product. But like, looking at how they were building Evolution and legitimizing it, I can see why they did it this way. It makes makes total sense. And I love the idea of evolution. I love the concept of a stable that spans generations. And they had that was a perfect template for those guys. You had Triple H as the current guy, Ric Flair representing the past, Orton and Batista representing the future. They nailed it with evolution. I will say that much. And I love seeing when stables like have all the gold. I love when a stable comes together for that singular plan. It's not very often that happens. And to me, there's a bit of a satisfaction as a fan when I see that. There's kind of the nice collection of belts and stuff. Then watching, back as with renewed eyes, so to speak. It's like, it was an okay show, and like Evolution's the only real memorable part about it. If you want to play a role in determining which shows I look at, be they good, bad, or somewhere in between, go to patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret, become a $10 backer or above, and you'll have the chance to nominate classic shows for me to review. And next time on the Classic Review segment, in 2 weeks, I'm going way off the beaten path. No WWE, no WCW, not even an ECW show. In 2 weeks, I'm reviewing that all-time classic, TNA Victory Road 2009. Oh yeah, you know what matches on that show. You know I'm going to talk about it, and talk about it I will. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.